All right, welcome back to another episode of Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff and Matt. I know that we weren't here last week. We've got plenty to fill in today's episode, so thanks for sticking with us. Matt, welcome to the program as always, and we got quite a bit to talk about now. It's been a couple weeks, but we're 2 weeks closer to training camps will be opening up soon. So, opening thoughts.
Opening thoughts. It's so funny because when the season ends, and of course the Eagles had an extended season, it still feels like the off season is just an ocean to cross before we get to training camp. And it's like, and yet we're 2 weeks out from training camp. So you're like, where did that time go? Football is a full, I think July 4th week, the week we didn't have a podcast, is like one of maybe 2 or 3 weeks where there's really a dead zone. And otherwise, the football world is just constantly rolling towards that next season. So pretty cool thing to think about. Like, I didn't even think about it that we're just 2 weeks away from training camp starting. So that's pretty awesome. As far as the other Eagles thoughts, there's not too much there's not big news other than we'll get into a little bit of the TJ Watt story, just because we haven't commented on that yet to add our input. And I don't know where you stand on that. I know where I stand, and we'll talk about that. I'm pretty clean, pretty straightforward on that one. And then we'll get into some other things that it'll be fun. Like you said, training camp battles. We'll talk about some of that. There's some interesting position battles that will definitely take place during camp. But I feel overall pretty darn good. Like, of all the teams that you've seen repeat and go back to the Super Bowl and win one, I don't see that this team would be much different than like the Denver Broncos with Elway, than the Chiefs even from a couple years ago. I'm like, the team is well positioned to go back to back because primarily of that offensive line. But they haven't really lost too many pieces elsewhere on the team that hasn't already been filled with guys that have proven in short bursts in some cases, but other cases like the cornerback position all season long, like they're not missing much. And then yet we've got the turnover of coaches that I guess would have some impact again, right? So Fangio stays, but now we have a new offensive coordinator again. So we'll see how that impacts everything. That's probably the biggest concern in the offseason is does the offense miss any steps with a new play caller at that position? But
Yeah, I was going to definitely touch on some concerns. I don't have a lot, but there's a couple, and one of them you just hit on. Before we get to that, though, since you mentioned it, let's just get it out of the way because I know both of us don't want to spend a heck of a lot of time on it. And that is all of the clickbait, all of the chatter that's out in Philadelphia Eagles land and the talk radios, and it's got some traction only because Eagle fans, and it's just the off season. I think that's a huge part of it. People just need something to talk about. So it's the rumor that the Steelers are actually looking to trade TJ Watt, and one of the rumored teams, speculated teams, is the Eagles. Now, I don't see this happening for two main reasons, which is they both are exactly the same reason, just with both teams. One, I can't see all these moves that the Steelers are doing, bringing Rodgers in, the trade that they just made with Fitzpatrick, and to get Ramsey, and some of the other offseason moves that they made, but especially Rodgers. I mean, they're not bringing Rodgers in as a long-term plan. Why would they bring Rodgers in, who's expensive, make this trade for Ramsey and Fitzpatrick move with the Dolphins? Obviously, they made the trade with the Cowboys earlier, but they basically gave up the wide receiver and didn't really get much in return. Why would they do all that and then trade their best player? That already makes no sense from the Steelers' point of view. And then if you get to the Eagles, all of the Eagles' offseason non-signings, letting Josh Sweat go, right? Letting, trading away C.J. Johnson, another, more than likely that was kind of an attitude plus a salary move to save money. Not signing Becton because he made a fortune. Their Eagles are in cost-cutting mode in a sense only because they know what they have to sign next year and the year after. Jalen Carter, Blankenship, all these guys now they've drafted well. So my point is, it makes no sense from the Steelers to trade TJ Watt. And it makes no sense for the Eagles to now spend a fortune, not only having to give up draft picks or whoever in a trade to get him, and then you got to pay TJ Watt, who wants a new contract, to begin with. They're not going to. Why would they do that? It doesn't.
No.
That doesn't make any sense either. Why would you bring TJ Watt in? You got to pay him a fortune. They're already up against the cap if they pay Watts, and then they're not going to have enough money to secure potentially Jalen Carter and whoever else they got signed, and all these youth contracts that are coming up from these great draft picks the Eagles have had over the last 2-3 years. So that's all I got to say about it. I know it's a lot, but to me, the trade makes no sense from both teams' perspectives. That's my 2 cents. What are your thoughts?
I would say the trade makes a little bit more sense from the Steelers' perspective just because of the name that's been tied into it from the Eagles side of things, which is Nolan Smith.
That's true. I didn't mention that, so thanks. Yep, that would be the trade back, would be the Eagles giving up Nolan Smith, and then, of course, having to pay and to re-sign or to sign TJ Watt, who's looking for a big contract. So, yeah.
So the Eagles hold all the leverage if you're talking Watt for Nolan Smith. The Eagles and Vic Fangio in particular love Nolan Smith. They love him. You look at the way we've talked about this many times, the way he pulverized these offensive linemen. Like, risk is not an issue with him. He did mention bulking up in the offseason so that he can actually do what he's been doing more often and destroying offensive linemen. And so you've got a young guy, low salary, but all the ceiling in the world. Who knows where his ceiling is at? Whereas TJ Watt's ceiling is high, but it's slowly coming down. And for a lot of money, you're paying for a diminished product where Nolan Smith is very cheap and his stock is all up in the air, like skyrocket, right? So there's no way the Eagles need to even entertain this idea. If they were talking possibly Howie trying to create some space to pull TJ Watt over, and if they still had Bryce Huff to be part of a trade, sure, I could see that happening. But no, Huff's already gone, and there's no way, because of the moves that you said, to trim the roster of the money and the salary that's already tied up in the players they have now, but also the Jalen Carters and the folks coming up next year, like and Nolan Smith
and Blankenship and
and then
down the road.
AJ Brown problem too. Like AJ Brown's contract's going to be up and ready to be re-signed at some point too. So no, there's no way TJ Watt fits on this. It's complete clickbait, and I still think people who are Eagles fans, you just need to study a little bit of how he does business. I think we've been wrong maybe once in our assessment of Howie, and that was that he wasn't ever going to sign Saquon Barkley. But now you heard from him.
Barkley, I was completely wrong.
Right, same here.
Most of the time, we're pretty good about this, but Barkley, I never saw happening. But that again, even though it did happen, and those fans that were sitting there saying it's going to happen with Barkley, and I was basically shouting him down last year, just prior to this time, because I think that happened in June last year when I signed Barkley. But that was the track record. So yes, we were wrong, but that was such an un-Howie-like move. There's reasons for that. So to your point, yeah, we might have missed out on Barkley, but we overall know what the Eagles' plan is and what Howie generally does, and that's why I just don't see this happening. Now, here's the thing: if you did a straight up deal and money wasn't involved, would you trade Nolan Smith for TJ Watt? Yeah, probably, because Watt is a better player and he's a star and he's a stud. But that's not the case. You have to factor in the money and the age and all that thing. That's what you have to do, is evaluating when you're making these moves as a GM. And so, yeah, it'd be great to have TJ Watt in this defense. But when you look at is it smart to do that financially and giving up a young stud, rising potential star in Nolan Smith to do it as well? No, it really doesn't at the end of the day. So
if you told me any other player practically on that defense who might have a question mark, like maybe Jordan Davis has a question mark behind who he is on that football field, and maybe he hasn't lived up to that trajectory and the incline of the game, but there's no doubt that Nolan Smith is going that way. And
took a huge step last year.
Yeah.
Huge.
So there's no way. I would not even make that trade even if it wasn't tied to money. My stock.
You wouldn't even trade straight up No money, or the Eagles weren't in this financial situation that they're in. Say they had plenty of space. So you still want to get TJ Watt for Nolan Smith? I don't know. I would seriously have to consider that. Watt is a better player right now at their stage in their career. He's an absolute force and a menace. That's the only reason why I would consider it. But you got to factor in the money, the age, and all that. Just have to.
I think it goes more than that. You've got those Georgia Bulldogs on that defense, and when you take one of those guys out for an old guy who may not even fit in as nice and seamlessly as those Georgia Bulldog defenders are playing for the Eagles, I wouldn't mess with that chemistry at all.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Far away from this TJ Watt trade talk as you could possibly be on, Mike. If you do it,
oh yeah, I am too. I think it's just total clickbait. I don't think there's a lot to it, but you have bigger names in the Eagles media. Elliott Shore-Parks, who's like one of the main ones pushing this and saying, I would do it.
Sure.
I would definitely make the trade. I'm like, okay, Elliott, how are you going to pay Jalen Carter next year when you're paying Watt $60 million for a 3-year contract? It makes no sense.
Look, I get it financially for those guys. It makes sense to pitch the clickbait, but you don't get the pitching of the clickbait here. That's why we're probably slow in our process of getting subscribers, because we're actually looking at what is going to truly happen. Because it takes a little bit of vision beyond just you clicking on the here and now, especially in the offseason. The whole story is just whacked for me. There's no way. And like I said, it's tied to Nolan Smith for me. There's no way the Eagles are moving Nolan Smith unless by some chance they know that he is not recovering from injury well.
Yeah.
And broken goods, that's the only way Nolan Smith leaves
or they feel he is injury prone and it's worth making a move. But again, it's not going to happen. So you're in my point. The financials don't line up. The Eagles have to, even though they're the Eagles could afford TJ Watt right now. They could make that move and pay him. And then they have no money to secure Jalen Carter, who's going to ask for the most money out of any defensive tackle in the league, which if he has another great season like we all expect him to have, he's going to deserve. And then all these other young guys. Blankenship is up this year. They probably got to re-sign him, right? You want to let him go? I mean, is he a star player? No, but is he a very solid player back there in defense? Absolutely. And then Nolan Smith. Oh, I guess he would be involved in the trade, so we'll scratch him for a minute. But Jalix Hunt, right? If he ends up continuing to play well, he's going to need a contract in another year or two. Nakobe Dean's up after this year. He'll be determined how he's able to come back this year. See if the Eagles might be able to get him on the cheap, only because he's injured this year. Because if he had finished off last year and had another great year following last year, Nakobe Dean would be super expensive to keep. They might get a break Eagles wise, with his contract. But then you're gonna have to pay DeJean and Quentin Mitchell. So
we kicked the crap out of the Kansas City Chiefs in the biggest game of the year without TJ Watt. We don't need it. Now, if the Pittsburgh Steelers don't want to pay him and they end up cutting him, and then he's a late season pickup for basically the cheap because nobody else pays him either, I could see how he maybe
like a 1 year prove it deal type thing. Not that he needs to prove it.
I could see that, a 1 year prove it thing, but I don't see anything else. Let some other team go bust on.
Yeah, we're done talking about it. I mean, that's we probably spent too much time even talking about it. So anyway, Matt and I's take pretty clear, straight front. It's all a bunch of nonsense. There's no validity to these rumors out there other than just the clickbait and these radio shows trying to get Eagle fan base fired up. So that's our take on that. So let's get on to the other real quick is Matt, I wanted you to talk a little bit about the second round draft pick situation that's going on with the signings in the league, because I know you got a little bit of a take on that, a little bit of information for the audience as far as what's going on with the rookie signings.
Yeah, as I was catching up on my Eagles press releases and different signings and stuff over the last couple of weeks, one of them caught my eye, and I was like, did I just read that correctly? And I thought about it more today, and I went back and researched it. But there was some buzz around the Eagles signing a former second-round draft pick. And, of course, the way it's set up with clickbait, it was like, Eagles signed a second-round draft pick. And then if you look a little deeper, it'll tell you from 6 years ago. That was Terrence Marshall Jr., wide receiver. That was, I think, a Titans draft pick, perhaps. But that was not the guy that I'm waiting for, that everyone's waiting for, Andrew Makuba. The Drew Makuba, second-round pick, the C.J. Gardner clone, hopefully. And so as I got into trying to make sure I had accurate information, I did come across one article that was very well written. I should quote who wrote it, but he had put together that essentially there's 40 second-round draft picks that are unsigned right now with a lot of teams because the top of the round, of the second round, the draft picks that went to the Bengals, went to the Titans at the top of the round, they were able to sign rookie contracts as a second-round draft pick for fully guaranteed money. So 3 years, yada, yada, fully guaranteed. And that's why if they're at the 6th or 7th second-round guy that's waiting to sign, they're trying to push for the same money and get it fully guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
Even though it's slotting down. So Makuba was the 64th overall pick. So the fully guaranteed is not going to reach him. But if he were to sign now, then he's going to reverse set the market, and he doesn't know what he should actually get paid. So as soon as those guys that are in that 10th pick overall, second round, which would be around the 38 mark to 40th overall type picks, as soon as those guys start signing, then you'll see this slot succession happen pretty quick, and all those guys will line up and sign. And
it's like a domino effect, right, at that point.
Yeah. And in the next 2 weeks, we should see that. So that was a very clever article, I thought, that made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that, so that's good information. Because otherwise, you'd think he's holding out, and he's got a beef with the team. It's not necessarily the case. He's just waiting, for the ones in front of him to just get squared away.
Yep, and I haven't read a whiff of any other contentious types of contracts. They settled everything with Dallas Goedert before they got too far into the offseason. So we're ready to go, man. Like, this training camp is just, I can't wait. Like, let's start playing where these guys are going to settle.
Yeah, so that's actually the next topic. So what I want to get into, we're 2 weeks away now from camp, and that's when things just start getting really juicy. And football season is literally around the corner. We can start watching these training camp battles, although most of those are pretty much on defense because our offense is, other than the guard spot, we're rolling back everybody. So that's awesome. So the Eagles offense should only just get better. Defensively, we got battles at the linebacker position, the safety position, and the other cornerback position outside, opposite of Mitchell. So 3 really critical spots on defense and the line, because there's going to be depth battles behind Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt as far as who's going to be our, the guys that are going to spell and rotate in and out with those guys when they need a breather. That's where Al-Jalari is going to come in, and the signing, some of the free agent signings the Eagles picked up the offseason. So those are the areas. Now, what I do have a couple concerns, nothing really pressing, but I would say one of my concerns heading into camp is the new offensive coordinator. Now, I'm not as concerned because he has been here for like 4 or 5 years. I mean, so this guy is not like he just brought him in off the street or he was with another team last year. So he's worked with Hurts for like the last 3-4 seasons in different roles, but he's been in the offense and he's been here. So that, he still now is promoted and he's going to be running the show on offense. So we'll see if he's able to handle that. But the fact that he has familiarity with Hurts already, and he knows that by this point, you would think and assume that he knows what works for Jalen and what doesn't. And so I don't have huge concerns over it, but it is a concern because, it's a brand new coach heading up our offense. The other one is the depth. I was just talking about it behind Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt, because I think we've always had depth on the D line. This year, it's going to be interesting to see how the depth's going to line up. I'm not really concerned about our starters, but you can't expect the starters to be healthy the whole season. Hopefully they are, but say, Nolan Smith, who we know is already sort of injury prone a little bit, say he misses 3 or 4 games. Who's going to step in and line up and be able to provide pressure opposite of Jalix Hunt, or vice versa if Jalix Hunt goes down. We need someone to step up. So those are going to be some training camp battles. I'm going to be looking because the Eagles need some depth. I mean, that's always been a forte of the Eagles defense, pressuring the quarterback. And if they got one of these two starters that go down, who's going to be the ones that are going to step up? So that'll be something to be looking at. Obviously, we got to figure out with Nicole B. Dean not going to be back for probably half of the season, who's going to step up and play? Is it going to be Jeremiah Trotter Jr.? Is it going to be what's the last name of the first round pick that we got?
Campbell. Jahad Campbell.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's because he's another one that's battling back from injury too. Like he was hurt in college. He had some off-season surgery. They say he may potentially miss the first couple weeks of the season. He may not necessarily be ready for the season opener. We'll see. There's some back and forth about that. Some say he may be ready, but anyway, it's a question mark. And even if he misses a little bit of camp, you saw what happened with DeJean last year, Gene, right? He, took 4 weeks before he really got injected into the defense. So who's going to step in? Is it going to be Trotter Jr.? Is it going to be the other linebacker that they picked up as well in the offseason? We need somebody to step up there. And then, of course, you're going to have the huge training camp battle, the one I'm most looking forward to, and that's Sidney Brown and Makuba, we were just talking about. So we'll see who's going to, potentially be safety opposite of Blankenship. So, and then, of course, Ringo, the battle between Ringo, the Giants cornerback we brought in. Man, what the hell's his name? The USC guy, the USC cornerback. What's that?
Adoree Jackson.
Thank you. So that's going to be another battle to look at. So those, I want to call them concerns, more battles. My main concern, depth on the D-line, and then who's going to potentially step in there for, the other linebacker position.
I'll give you another concern on D-line besides depth, and that's can the ends play the run as well as BG and Josh Sweat did. So,
yeah,
you've got the NFL's a copycat league, right? Oh, the running game is done. It's finished until Barkley and Derrick Henry just destroy the league with running. And now who else is going to commit to the run and force those defensive ends to actually have to stop it versus just passing all the time and getting killed in the pass rush? So I do have a little bit of concern there of who are going to be the run-stopping defensive ends that step up. I think Smith
good point.
Both, but
here's the thing. I'll just touch on real quick. Fortunately for the Eagles, in their division, there's really no strong running attack. There really isn't. I mean, you got the Giants who drafted some young guys. No idea how good they're going to be. Washington doesn't really have a strong running game. It's okay. Nothing surprising.
Yeah.
And then Dallas really doesn't have any running game. So divisional-wise, we should be okay for stopping the run. However, outside of the division, the Eagles, as we know, is a very tough schedule. Or in the playoffs, you need to stop the run in the playoffs. So I think it's a good point.
So I don't really have any other concerns about the Eagles defense just because they've got the depth at those other positions. Like, okay, who's going to start at safety? I've heard them talk a lot about putting Cooper DeJean as one of the starting safeties. And I'm like, okay.
I don't think they'll do that, but I've heard that's possible.
I don't think so either, but I've read enough articles that say that maybe Vic is experimenting with players that way. But you've got DeJean, Sidney Brown, Makuba, even the guy that started Tristan McCallum over Brown last year. Like, you've got depth at that position. You've got depth at the cornerback position. Some of these guys that were in line to get on the field before they drafted Quentin Mitchell and Cooper DeJean are still there. Ely Ricks, Keely Ringo, those guys are still there. So they're fully solidified in those positions. Linebacker, they've got a little bit of depth too. I still can't remember the linebacker that they brought in early in free agency, but it's one of Vic Fangio's former guys that used to play either in Miami. I think it was a Miami linebacker. But another name that, we didn't know who Zach Bond was until Fangio found Bond. Yeah. So this guy's another guy to compete at that linebacker position with Trotter Jr., with a healthy Dean when he comes back midway through the season, with a Jahad Campbell. And I do think because of Campbell's size at that middle linebacker position that I can see them toying with what do they do with him as an end rusher,
Yeah. I hope that's how they're – he looks like he could be that.
He looks bigger in size than Nolan Smith.
He's much bigger than Nolan Smith is. Yeah,
looks thicker and stockier. So
thicker. Yeah.
If they got Smith to destroy offensive linemen last year, then maybe they have the same idea for Campbell playing with the same intensity. But
yeah.
I don't have too many concerns there. On offense, obviously when you switch coordinators, you're going to be hoping that things are seamless. But everyone's got to be patient with the system. The Eagles didn't really turn on who they were going to be. They didn't really show who they were going to be until like week 5 or 6 last year. With
right.
the football being just preseason football, like cast out. You look at that Eagles team that showed up in the Super Bowl, and for all the naysayers that were like, "What is this crap?" and they weren't burning jerseys yet, but they were about to if there was one more loss attained by that team, and we were right there with them, like, you guys need to turn it around now and start demonstrating. But we also were talking with that balance of it's gonna be preseason first before we get into here's who we are, and as soon as we get off of that bye week.
And we'll be saying that again this year, too. We'll be pounding that drum again, too, because these teams, and this is not just the Eagles, although the Eagles are definitely one of the teams that rarely play their starters or don't play them much at all. Some other teams do, play them more than the Eagles do. But for the most part, across the league, we're not going to know who's who, who's good, who's not, who's a contender, who's a pretender. The pretenders are closer to like the first week of December. However, the preseason is really the first 2 or 3 weeks into the season. That's the real preseason now. And unfortunately, these games count. So
right. You got to tackle, you got to hit, you got to recover during the week, and it takes about a month to get used to that type of process. And once that occurs, then you know what's starting to look fluky and what you really got. When Cooper,
the Eagles, as we know, have a very tough schedule to start the season. So, I'm not too concerned about Dallas, because Dallas, even if they are better this year because Dak's back, they have a new offensive and defensive coordinator. We'll have plenty of time to talk about Dallas, the week 1 matchup. But I think if Dallas is better this year, quote unquote, they're not going to be better week 1. There'll be a better team 6-7 weeks into the season when their offensive defensive coordinator have a night, just are slowly getting their chemistry and all that together. I could see them getting off to a slower start. But week 2, Kansas City, no excuses there, man. Andy Reid coached offense, star quarterback, and that team is very consistent and always good. That would be a huge test. And, of course, the Rams, same thing. Great coach team. A lot of veterans on that team, mixed with good youth as well. That's going to be another tough game right there in week 3, and we're kind of off to the races after that. So Eagles going to be tested often and early right off the bat here in this season.
I think they're more in danger of losing trap games this year than ever before, because they're going to be so buzzed.
How many trap games they really have in their schedule, though? I mean, I guess unless you want to count the Giants, because they're playing a tough team every week.
Any NFC team counts. I think Dallas is trap games. I think the Eagles are going to be flying high with the adrenaline buzz for most of their games. Actually, that's the part that I hope they can just reserve some for the playoffs. So if ever they need to secure home field advantage in a very tough schedule for all season long, it's this year. They're going to need that rest at the end of the season to put things back together.
Yeah, but it's going to be
do you know when the bye week is?
I think it's 10, I think, I want to say.
All right, so about half.
It's right in the middle. It's right in the middle somewhere. It could be like week 8 or week 10. It's somewhere more in the middle this year. I don't remember exactly what week it is, but it's more in the middle of the season.
That's probably going to be a much-needed break at that point.
Oh, yeah. But to your point, I don't know. Even if the Eagles play great this year, it's a tough season. So, we haven't gotten to predictions yet. We'll certainly have time for that in the coming weeks, but it may, with the tough schedule they have, the Eagles might have less wins than last year. They have a 14 regular season. I can see the Eagles getting, maybe only 12 wins this season or 13, and because of the tough schedule. So there could be a team like Detroit or surprise team in the NFC that has a much easier schedule that might squeak out 13 wins, and they're the number 1 seed. And they may not be as good as the Eagles, but because they have such a tough schedule, might, be a higher seed. So that's going to be, I agree with you. The Eagles really need to have home field, but, man, it might be tough to do it this year.
Well, also, though, you look at these teams. If Jaden Daniels gets hurt and misses a few games, Commanders are not they'll be struggling to hit a 10-win season possibly. If Stafford goes down, struggling to hit a 10-win season.
Yeah.
If Goff goes down for the Lions, struggling to win a 10-game season. So
except for the Eagles, so if Hurts goes down, we know we have Tanner McKee who go and he'll just
do. So
he'll just keep on going. By the way, again, we don't have to talk about how high Matt and I are in McKee, other than to say this, that we were high in McKee the first basic time we saw him play. Like real, we were very high in him. There's a lot of people now jumping on the McKee bandwagon, everywhere. Everyone's talking how great, how he's like the hidden gem and all this kind of stuff. Just keep in mind, folks, Matt and I were on this McKee bandwagon way before what you're hearing now. I'm glad for McKee that he's getting the due respect that I think he's deserved. But Matt and I were all over this early on, as far as what we thought about McKee. So
the boy can play, yeah, and he's I don't think they're going to keep him this entire season. That's exactly who
that's the only thing we disagree on. About
if you're the Rams, so let's say one of those three teams I just named, except for the Commanders, but let's say Lions or Rams lose their starting quarterback for the season. That Tanner McKee, they're going to scrounge for tape if they have any doubt in their number 2 guy. I can't right now name the Rams' second quarterback. I can't name the one.
I get what you're saying, but what makes you think the Eagles are going to want to give up their second? Knowing that they have a running quarterback of their own, and Hurts is, he usually misses a game or two during the season.
Yeah.
And we just talked about how important every single game is going to be this year.
Yeah.
I still think they're going to be willing to just, unless someone throws out a ridiculous, we'll give you a first-round pick for him. Yeah, then you have to trade him.
You're going to toss something out there. We need to win now. Lions are built to win now, and we need a QB. Tanner, I think, is going to have an opportunity this season to fly the coop if Howie pulls the trigger. That's what I think.
Yeah, it can happen. Never say never. He's definitely now no longer a secret in the league like he's been in past year. So
he's going to be showcasing all preseason long, man. It's going to be McKee.
He's going to get a lot of action in the preseason. Yeah,
playing time.
Although we say that, but now he is the number 2. So yeah, he's going to play, but I don't know if he'll play as long as he did last year. We'll see.
No, but he'll have some full quarters in there.
Yeah.
And, when they get, nobody plays the last preseason game. Are there only 2 preseason games this year?
No, I think there's 3.
3. So the fuller season's coming down in the future.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think eventually there's only going to be 2. Well, I think what the rumor is, again, that the league still wants to have an 18-game season, and if they do that, then there's be only 2 preseason games.
Yeah,
that's at least my understanding of it.
I used to be against it, but now I'm like, they're playing preseason football for a month anyway.
Yeah.
So
right.
Well. Better.
Exactly. And I think the players would rather be playing real games than just sitting around during the preseason game. I know at least the starters. All right, so couple last things here, and then we'll call it a show here. What is I don't know if you've had any of this back and forth like I have. Now, again, for those of you who don't know, I do I have a small business on the side where I'm twice a month at least on at shows setting up, and I'm talking to various football fans across the league face to face. I'm sitting there telling them I wouldn't be surprised, and it might happen, even though I know the deck is stacked, that Barkley might become the first running back to ever get 2,000 yards twice. Might not be this year. Could still be next year. But I think he's going to have a real solid shot. Almost every single person I get into this debate with says not a freaking chance in the world he comes close to 2,000 yards this year. And I always say there's 2 reasons why I say it's possible. Number 1 is the fact that the whole entire Eagles offense is coming back this year, except for the guard spot. Otherwise, seamless change from last year in terms of the talent on the field. Secondly, Barkley is in his prime right now. And thirdly, I just think that with the offensive line, again, getting back to the talent, I think he can do it. Now, plus, the other thing is he has a 17th game, which previous running backs never had the extra 17 game. So, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not sitting here to tell you he's going to run for 2,000 yards, but I am the advocate of it's possible that he could do it.
He sat out.
So I just want to let you know that's I just had these constant debates, and I do it on purpose now. Now I just like, hey, what do you think? You think Barkley can get 2,000 yards again? And almost everyone's like, just shoots it down immediately. Oh, he had way too many carries last year. He's injury prone. He's not going to stay healthy 2 straight years. Yeah, I get all it never happened. It's never happened. There's a reason why it's never happened. So, what are your thoughts? Like, if you had to lay down a bet, would you bet that he can do 2,000 yards this year, or would you say, nah, probably not?
Yeah, I wouldn't bet the farm on it, but I would make a bet.
I'm not betting the farm on it either.
It would have the best odds of any running back in history to be able to do it, just like you said, for all the reasons that you mentioned. But Barkley sat out a full game and a half last year.
Yeah.
And that was the big beef was, they're not giving him a chance for the record. We're like, no, because we're going to go win the Super Bowl. And we were talking, well, you better win the Super Bowl. Guess what? They won the Super Bowl in handily, like no doubt form, right? So Barkley, that game is going to be clicking on all cylinders right from the start of the season. The stable of running backs behind Barkley need to be prepared and ready to go because they're going to need to rest him and give him some time. But if he plays 3/4 of every game this season, probably going for 2,000 yards. I'm surprised, though, that no other running back has done it. Jamal Lewis didn't do it twice.
No, so nobody's ever done twice. The closest
1,800-yard season or so, and then got over 2,000.
Closest to do it was Henry last year. Henry has already done it once, and he had 1,900 and something yards last year. He was the closest almost to it. So,
beast.
I think
I would bet.
Like Barry had a couple 1,800 plus yard seasons, and he did it in 16 games. Barry did. Again, I think the key is the 17th game is the key. It's definitely a key because he gets an extra game.
And an incredible line that knows how to run block. So
yeah, that's the line. I'm like, that's what the first thing I say. I'm like, you don't think Barkley could do it behind the Eagles' offensive line? This line is dominant as in you can make comparisons to the Cowboys line. I still think that's probably the best offensive line I've ever seen. Back those Emmitt Smith 90s days. This Eagles line is pretty damn close.
Yeah, I would bet for sure.
What was that?
What else we got?
What did you say?
I said I would bet for sure. What else we got?
All right, so the last thing is, because I'm a huge Eric Allen fan, as I've discussed on this channel, keep in mind the NFL Hall of Fame ceremonies they're usually the last weekend in July or the first weekend in August. There's usually that wraparound, 31st to August 1st or 2nd, something like that. Anyway, Eric Allen, it's actually, I just saw the video earlier today. He received his gold jacket. He didn't put it on yet because they don't put it on until the actual ceremony. But it was a nice little scene when he's opening it in front of his family. And, he picks it up and just shows it. He's like, I'm not putting it on yet, but, it's a nice scene. So anyway, it's one of those guys I've been pushing for years to get into the Hall of Fame. Never understood why it took Eric Allen to get in this long. His numbers are better than 3 or 4 corners that are in the Hall of Fame. Anyway, you don't have to worry about that anymore. Eric Allen gets in this year, and I'm excited I'll be excited certainly to watch the ceremony, when he gets sworn in, the whole speech and everything else. So just wanted to mention that because we have an Eagle Hall of Famer going in this year. So that's all I got here for the pod. So you got any final thoughts?
No, just 2 weeks can't come fast enough, to be honest with you. Let's get back to football. Let's start seeing where things sort themselves out. Can't wait to watch the linebackers. That's really where my eyes are going to be, is how they figure that.
And once we get back into the swing of things, certainly the regular season, we're going to have at least 2 shows a week, just like we did last year. Preview, wrap up. So twice a week. And we'll probably get to close to 2 per week once training camp opens up because we have so much more to talk about. So that's the plan going forward. And then, of course, we're going to be enhancing the show. I still have a lot of things to kind of tweak. They've enhanced. Streamline has got a lot of little bells and whistles now that I want to mess around with a little bit to see what we could do to kind of, even with their free edition, that I could kind of put in here to maybe just make it a little bit more entertaining, just seeing 2 talking heads, that type of thing. So maybe inject some videos, some highlights, stuff like that.
Plus,
going
my
forward.
background is going to be completely different once I finish my basement. I'll have my Eagles corner set up instead of playing in the extra kids room that hasn't been used in years. So I'm excited about that. So
lots of good stuff to come. So while we're on the topic, make sure you like and subscribe, hit that button. And when we have future shows, we might even live stream soon before the season starts. But at least I think we're going to do a live stream during the opening week of training camp. So so look out for that. And make sure you jump on and join us and be part of the show. That's ultimately what I want this show to become. Once we get further established and more subscribers, is pretty much do a live stream almost every show so that we're always engaging with you guys every show, getting your comments, questions, feedback, all that right there in real time. So that's really where I want to get to. So need your help with that. Like, subscribe, and be part of the show. With that being said, Matt, thanks again for joining us. We'll be back next week. And until then, fly, Eagles, fly, and go Birds. And we'll catch y'all next week.
Go Birds.